Sekeres and Price from Wall Center special Thanksgiving Day edition. S&P presents Go Goat Sports Family Thanksgiving. We heard from Ray and Dregs. Now it's Rink Wide's turn, joined by Jeff Paterson and Andrew Wadden. How we doing, fellas?
Yeah, good. Giving thanks and we're ready for the new season.
Absolutely.
You guys are truly the best experts for this season preview because you guys have gone through the preseason games as painful as that has been with a fine-tooth comb. So you probably know as good as anybody who seems to be informed. Just give a general, before we give the preview stuff, general assessment on the preseason that was, and we asked last week, your favorite storylines, your favorite sort of performances. What do you think preseason answered for the Vancouver Canucks?
Well, it reminded me that it's just far too long, first and foremost, but nothing we can do about that, and it is in the rearview mirror now. I think it has just proven what we spent all summer talking about, that Thatcher Demko is an all-world goaltender and looked really good in his games. That the forward group, led by Elias Pettersson, Andrei Kuzmenko, looks like a player. Like, I have very few concerns from what I've seen from the forward group, and yet here we are again. What is this? Feels like the fourth or fifth straight season that we zero in on the defense core, and you just wonder, what can they get out of it, and can it possibly hold up its end of the bargain?
I think we learned that they got a bit of forward depth as well. Didn't know much about Nils Amon or Linus Karlsson. Of course, we knew the Karlsson name for the last few years here in what we thought was maybe a dubious trade at one point, but looks like he might actually be a player for the Vancouver Canucks. But J-Pat's right. Injuries. That blue line was already kind of Swiss cheese to begin with. Now it's got a lot of holes in it.
All right, everybody. Well, we're going to make, unlike what we did with Ray and Dregs, where we just talked generally, we're going to get a little more specific here. We're going to get down on predictions for the Vancouver Canucks season, things like leading scorer and team MVP. We're going to start with our senior statesman, 20-plus years on the Vancouver Canucks beat, our Canucks reporter, Jeff Paterson. How many points for the Canucks this year, and where do you see them finishing in the division and the conference?
I'll go with 94 points, and I think that's going to put them right there in the mix to the final buzzer on this regular season. I don't know if this is a playoff team. I've wanted to believe all season or all summer because I want to cover a playoff team. I want playoff games at Rogers Arena. I want that for the fan base. I want that for the city. I have my reservations that this is the year that they cross the playoff bar. And yet, if there is a fan base that is so overdue to be able to get excited about playoff games at home, of course, the last home playoff games weren't at home at all. They were at the they were in the bubble in Edmonton, and before that, you got to go back to 2015. So, long time coming. I'll go with 94, and I just don't know if 94 is going to be enough in the Western Conference.
I'm right there with you, J-Pat. I actually have 95 points written down. I don't know. I think it's going to be somewhere around 96, maybe 97 points to get into the playoffs this year. I just see them, fighting maybe down to that last week. I don't really see the season going the way it went last year in terms of them having such a poor start and then having to play catch up when Bruce took over. I see them generally being in the thick of it throughout the season, but just, coming up short, maybe a point, maybe two.
So 94-95. Sorry, guys, 94-95. That's fourth in the Pacific then, basically, is where you see them right there on the edge? Yeah. Blake?
You know me, I'm Mr. Positivity, guys. If there's anything that reputation. But I honestly, I will be. I've been pretty consistent through the summer. 98 points is sort of the number that comes up. Just because, well, first of all, the intangible, they're due for a good luck year. And while they're starting this year with all these injuries, I think they can tread water through these injuries. And they're just due for things to fall their way a little bit. And if things do fall their way, I think the skill at the top end is enough to carry the day and get them to high water mark at 98 points. So at 98 points, to me, that gets you into third in the division and then puts you somewhere in the 5-6 spot in the conference. But comfortably playing playoff series within the division in the spring.
Well, I'm going to split the difference between all of you. 97 points, 43, 28, and 11. Fourth in the Pacific, seventh in the conference, the first wild card. Jeff, back to you. Leading scorer and team MVP, if it's different from the leading scorer, who you got?
Yeah, I'll one-stop shop here. I think this is the year that Elias Pettersson emerges so much like that rookie season when he burst onto the scene and scored on his NHL debut and racked up 10 goals in his first 10 games. We've seen some flashes here and there, but that was breathtaking. And it was an indication of the skill level that's there. We saw it in the second half. I've just been impressed with him from day one of training camp and how sort of focused and dialed in. And I loved what Bruce Boudreau said on Friday about recognizing his leadership and his role when he said that there was a reason they put an A on him in the preseason and that he's sort of that next man up. If one of the leaders does, in fact, have to take some time away, that they'll stitch the A on Elias Pettersson. I think he's going to be the leading scorer. I think this is the year that he gets to a point a game. And for that to mean something, he's got to stay healthy. Like, he can't be a point a game guy at 60 games and 60 points. They need him, and they're going to need him to be durable. And the last couple of years, it's been a little bit of an issue for him. But I'll say EP40 leads this team in scoring, and I think it's going to be somewhere in the low 80s for him.
I agree with Jeff, and I agree with Jeff in terms of EP40. I think this is the year that he gets a point a game. However, I don't think he's going to be the leading scorer of the team. I think that's going to be JT Miller. Once again, he just loves to feast on the power play. I know EP40 will get his power play points too, but JT Miller, I got him somewhere around 87 points, but he's not team MVP in my opinion. I think that's going to go to Thatcher Demko. I think if the Canucks are going to be a playoff team like perhaps Blake predicts in terms of finishing third in the division, it's going to be on the back of Thatcher Demko. He stays healthy. He's the team MVP.
Blake.
Yeah, it's, reasonable assessments from both of you, and I can see both of those things rolling out. Here's what I think. I agree with Andrew here. I think JT Miller and Elias Pettersson both have pretty prolific seasons. Who will benefit from both of that? Because he'll be on the ice with both of them. Quinn Hughes. And I don't think Quinn Hughes is going to be the leading scorer. I think that's going to be one of the two forwards forced to put. I'll put JT Miller to edge out Elias Pettersson in that regard, and it'll be very close. But I think, and I don't think he's going to get much higher than this in his career, but I think this could be a late 70s to 80 point year for Quinn Hughes. And I think that given the lack of depth on the blue line, that's going to just pop for people, and they're going to see that on a game-to-game basis. So I'll give Quinn Hughes the MVP.
Wow, you took the words out of my mouth on Hughes, Blake. I am going, much like JPAT, one-stop shop. I'm going Hughes for both. Well, just as Jeff mentioned, the injuries and, of course, the forwards, and particularly when you play a more rambunctious game, you may be inclined to more injury. So I'm going Quinn as the leading scorer because I do think he'll stay healthy. He's one of those guys who doesn't seem to, take big hits, is always slipping them. I, of course, love his ability to quarterback this power play. I think he's going to rack up tons of points there. But, guys, I think that he's going to get more 5-on-5 points because I think this is going to be a team that has three lines that can score a little bit more speed in the lineup. And so I think that suits Hughes' game. I debated very hard between Hughes and Demko on the team MVP, but hey, I'll agree with Blake on that and go Quinn as well.
50-foot passes to Spring Mikheyev.
That's it.
How many times,
that's what I'm thinking. That Kuzmenko
Mikheyev's got to
Mikheyev
score, which may not happen every time. But
I'm just thinking Mikheyev and Kuzmenko can turn some of those great outlet passes into goals this year. At least that's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, fill in the blank, Jeff. Canucks will be successful this year if
everything falls their way, and obviously it hasn't to start this season. We say that every year. Oh, things have to fall their way, and then you get the preseason injuries. They start out on the road. I'll tell you how I think they're going to be successful if they can protect home ice. They've got to be a better team at home, and the fans deserve it. It's a path to the playoffs here. If you can be a solid home ice team and then hold your own out on the road, but they start with 5 on the road. They've got to find a way to get through that road trip, get a little momentum. And of course, that's where it came off the rails for them last year, was that 7-game homestand to start, and they won twice. And we started to see the goal scoring issues. We saw the penalty killing woes, and it just kind of spiraled from there to the house cleaning in early December. So it's something that I've watched here. Just being at home in today's NHL, it's not enough. I mean, there are a lot of good road teams, so I'd like to see the Canucks get a little beefier at home when it comes to the way that they play and ultimately the results that they earn.
Andrew.
Yeah, I think success for the Canucks is if they have a top 5 power play and a top 10 penalty kill. They got to be good on special teams this year. We know that power play can be lethal for the Canucks. What is that penalty kill? What is it going to be this year? They cannot start the way they did last year. They were trending to be the worst in NHL history. Of course, they pulled themselves off the mat there, but they have to be better on the penalty kill. I think if they can get themselves into the top 10 with the penalty kill, and of course, as we've seen with that power play, it's top 5. At least it has the ability to be top 5. I mean, that could be the difference between them being a playoff team and not being a playoff team.
Blake, Canucks are successful this year if
the winger depth is winger depth. If we think this is winger depth because we just assume all of these wingers will perform to the back of their hockey card, if you will. But that won't happen until it happens, right? And there isn't any guarantee that only 3 of the 8 forwards that they have that are capable of points actually put up the points. But if the winger depth is what we think it is, according to resume and form, they're going to outscore a lot of their problems, whether that's on the special teams, as Andrew talks about, or at even strength. So just guys living up to their billing there on the wing.
Yeah. I'm going with if the team defense is good enough that it's not all about Thatcher Demko. There were so many nights last year and in the past, even going back to Jacob Markstrom, where, Jeff, you mentioned like year 5, we're talking about this defense core, where so much disproportionately fell on the goaltender, where it was you hope the goaltender had a spectacular night because you knew the shots and chances were going to be hard. Look, I'm not just singling out the blue line here, as we've talked about already. You've got injuries there, and it looks like it's going to be a struggle for the Canucks. The forwards, too. Like, I don't think the forwards helped out their teammates as much as they needed to last year when it came to team defense and goal prevention. So want to see more of that. If we do, I think this will be a pretty decent hockey club. All right, flip side of that question, Jeff. Canucks are in trouble if...
I'm going to say this Bo Horvat situation blows up into more than it is right now. We know what he means. He has said all the right things, that he's not going to let it be a distraction, but we have seen this before. And then ultimately, how does it play itself out? And we do wonder, is there enough money in the hat to go around for everybody? Who's going to get squeezed out? Could it be Bo Horvat? How much of a distraction does that become? And where are they around the trade deadline? And for all those things that we said about JT Miller 6 weeks ago, they apply to Bo Horvat now. Like, can you imagine if they're in the hunt and then they have to make this philosophical decision? So it's a storyline now, and in a market like this one, it's not going away until it's resolved. And I just wonder how much ultimately of a distraction the Bo Horvat saga turns out to be for the Vancouver Canucks.
Andrew.
Yeah, for me, it's injuries, and especially if Thatcher Demko gets injured. If Thatcher Demko is injured significantly and they lose a big chunk of the season, they're done. They're cooked at that point. But I think, too, these injuries on the blue line are worrisome for the Canucks right now. They don't have the depth. We've seen that. Maybe they'll be able to pick up a piece here on the waiver wire or perhaps through a trade. I don't know how they pull that off. But to me, it's injuries. And, yeah, if Demko's down, that'll be terrible for the Canucks season. But even on that blue line right now, with the amount of injuries that they've sustained, it's going to be a tough slog early on.
Yeah, already thin. Blake?
You might think this is a house of cards anyway, the way that this is built because of the defense, but I have to agree. Thatcher Demko's the cork in the boat, the plug in the boat. Mm-hmm. You take that out, everything comes down anyway. So it's as simple to me as the health of the goaltender.
Well, I'll build on both of you. For me, it's Demko and Hughes. Like, if Hughes misses significant portions of time here, I think their goose is cooked as well. I think he's their most important player in that regard because of the weakness.
Again, Jack Rathbun's not Quinn Hughes. I've said this a zillion times over, but he could pretend to be one for a few weeks' time in the case of a Quinn Hughes injury. I don't think anybody can pretend to be Thatcher Demko.
All right, well, here's our opportunity to have some fun and get a little hot takey here. Jeff, give me a surprise storyline for the season, something you think is going to crop up that maybe we're not talking about right now.
Yeah, well, Andrew just mentioned it, so we are talking about it, but I do think that the Vancouver Canucks, if their key guys are healthy, have the potential to have the best power play in the National Hockey League. I think it can run that hot. I think it can be that productive. I think it can be that much of a game changer, and I really do feel that power play could be their path to the playoffs. That This is a team that, despite the slow start overall for the hockey club last year, ended up under Bruce Boudreau. It was the second best power play in the National Hockey League. The component parts, Besser's missed the preseason, obviously, but Kuzmenko has slid in there. Besser will be back and ready to go before long. The component part is it's a chemistry thing. It's feeding off each other, knowing where they're going to be. And I think that familiarity lends itself to this group. And we know that Bo Horvat on the inside has really become kind of quietly a power play ace around the National Hockey League as a finisher. And I don't think it's out of the question that they could have the best power play in the National Hockey League by goals scored, but also by percentage. So absolutely a storyline I'm looking for, because if it gets off to a good start, I think that's just going to fuel the confidence and allow these guys to buy into my idea that, hey, maybe they have the potential to run the show when it comes to the man advantage in the NHL this season.
Andrew, what's going to take us by surprise this year with the Canucks?
To me, it's Andrei Kuzmenko. He is going to rack up a bunch of points this year for the Canucks. He's got great chemistry with Elias Pettersson. We've seen it early in the preseason here. I think Kuzmenko could perhaps be a one and done for the Canucks, because they might not be able to afford him next year, but that'll bode well for them this year. Andrei Kuzmenko can have a breakout year, in my opinion.
Blake, you always relish a good hot take, something counterintuitive, deep cuts and B-sides. What you got for us?
This is down Main Street to some degree, and the first half is not going to blow you away. I think Elias Pettersson can score 40 goals this year. It'll be 40, 41 if he gets there. Here's the thing. I think he's going to have a really good start, and for a little while, we'll be keeping an eye on a 50 watch. He'll be having people talking about 50 before a moderation gets us off that pace, but he'll be flirting with people thinking he can score 50 for deep into the season.
Boy, it's been a while since we've had a 50 watch here with the Vancouver Canucks. That would be a lot of fun. I'm going with management being willing to move on from its two locker room leaders. This is the last season in Vancouver for head coach Bruce Boudreau and Captain Bo Horvat. Both of them, of course, on the final years of their contracts. Fellas, great fun. Great fun, and thank you for making time here. Appreciate you doing the segment with us. Happy Thanksgiving. And a reminder, rink-wide, pregame, postgame, every game. They'll be hard at work this week, including the opener on Wednesday against the Edmonton Oilers. Thanks for this, Jeff. Andrew, appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
You said good fun. Let's hope the season is good fun, too.
Yeah.